All right, I'm here to give you guys some pointers on how to write a good introduction and conclusion. The first thing I wanted to talk about is this little graphic. So a good introduction should take you from the most general things that people understand about your topic. Things like stories of common people, big ideas, things that they can relate to, the most general things about your topic, and it should filter them down to their thesis statement, which is the most specific thing about your topic that you're going to say. It's the thing that you are most expert on after you've completed all of your research. So you're going to start with a big idea that people can understand, and you're going to move it down to a very specific assertion, your thesis statement. And a good conclusion should do exactly the opposite. It'll start with the specific assertion that you're making, your thesis statement, but sort of in another form. And it will filter them back out into the world. It will tell them, why they should care about this, what they can do about it. It should have them leave the paper with an idea of why this topic matters, ultimately. So here are a couple of ideas for what you can do to start your paper out in a way that's going to make us compelled, that's going to make us want to read more. The first thing you could do is start with an interesting quote about your topic. So if you run across some smart person who's in your research, who has done a lot of research on this, or who is an authority figure, you can pull a quote from them that you feel like will make your topic appeal to people. The next thing you can do is an interesting quote from somebody noteworthy that is not specifically about your topic, but that applies to your topic. So, if you were doing an animal rights paper and you were to, find a quote that had something to do with the dignity of animals, or, how important they are to humanity, that would be a great place to start, and would lead you into the specific idea, the assertion that you're going to be making in the paper. The next thing, and a really effective strategy, is using an anecdote, or kind of a little snippet of a story. Needs to be cited, and it needs to be a true story, a verifiable story, that gets the people, makes them able to relate to what your topic is about. This would be particularly important if it's a topic that, and they should be, as being social issues, but that specifically has had an impact on a group of people personally. If you were writing about environmental damage, and there was a group of people who who had gotten been infected with a disease, or become exposed to toxins because of some specific incident that happened that you're going to be addressing in your paper, those people's story would be a great place to start. It personalizes and humanizes, makes people care about your paper. It's also great because you can revisit it in your conclusion. You can have people come back around, remember why we're in this paper and why it matters, and bring them back to those people that you talked about at the beginning, the anecdote. You could also come up with a startling fact or statistic. This really should be a startling fact. It should be something that when people read it, they kind of gasp. They cannot believe that this thing could possibly be true, and your paper is going to show them how it's true. Make sure that these statistics have citations, and they do need to be true. You can't just shock people with something that you pull out of the air. All right, so a couple of just general pointers about your introduction. So it should always end with your thesis statement. That should be the very last line of your introduction, always, always. I always suggest to my students that they underline it in the paper so that it's easy to find, so that they know where it is, so I know where it is. And your introduction should move from those attention getters into your thesis fluidly. So move from the general into the specific, into explaining why your topic matters, and then into your assertion, your thesis. A couple of things to avoid. No definitions. They're just it's a really cliched way to start a paper. So never start with the Merriam-Webster's dictionary version of, or definition of the word abortion is, and then give it to us. We all know what the definitions of these words are, and it's not going to have an effect. It's not going to grab my attention to get to hear a dictionary definition. The next thing not to do, no broad historical statements. So no, ever since the beginning of time, dinosaurs roamed the earth. Nothing like that pulls all the way back to history, because they're meaningless. It's a way of just saying, here's my topic. Well, we know what your topic is. What we want is to become interested in your topic, and that doesn't do it. A couple of things about conclusions. So like I said, they should do exactly the opposite thing from an introduction. Whereas the introduction starts out very broad, it filters down to the thesis. The conclusion should start again with your assertion. So touch back on it. Remind us again what it is that you're claiming. But this time, when you do it, you don't need to include the roadmap part. So just tell us, what it is that you believe to be true, and then lead from that back out into the world. Where do we take this? So some ideas that have been successful in the past are things like, what can we do now that we know this topic? So an action plan, take action on something, or also a reconnection to the introduction is always a great idea. So if you've planted that anecdote or that startling statistic, or however you started the paper, come back to it here and remind people that this is why, that personal effect is why we're in this and why your paper is important. And that's all on intros and conclusions.